I inherited my dad's inflatable toy factory, but it quickly became apparent that it was a massive money pit. The accountant pushed the ledger toward me. Young boss, we only have 30,000 yuan left in the account. We've got a backlog in the warehouse of about over 2,000 items. Blow-up dolls, bouncy castles, inflatable water slides. Before I could even process that depressing piece of information, old Zhang, the workshop director, pushed the door open. He was trailed by 7 or 8 factory workers. Young boss, it's not that I don't respect you, but we really can't survive like this. We haven't received our full paychecks in 3 months, and I've got 2 kids to feed at home. The men behind him silently took off their employee badges. I took a deep breath. Uncle Zhang, give me 1 month. If the factory isn't turning a profit by then, I won't ask any of you to stay. Old Zhang let out a heavy sigh, turned around, and walked out. I stared at the warehouse, packed to the rafters with unsold inflatable toys, trying to brainstorm a way out of this mess. My phone rang. It was old Lee, who ran a convenience store down in the town. Boss, I need 10 small inflatable toy cars. Do you still have stock? I do. I'll bring them right over. I hung up, loaded a box of inventory onto my motorized cargo trike, and puttered my way into town. When I arrived at old Lee's store, he cracked open the box and arranged the inflatable cars in the most prominent spot by the entrance. Afterward, the 2 of us squatted by the door and smoked cigarettes for half an hour. Not a single kid walked by. Old Lee flicked his cigarette ash. See that? These days, every little brat is glued to a smartphone. It's a miracle if anyone buys these toys. Honestly, I only buy them to make my storefront look colorful. I smoked in silence, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. Just then, old Lee's grandson came sprinting out of the house. He was about 7 or 8 years old, round as a bowling ball, looking like a little meatball with legs. His eyes instantly locked onto the inflatable toy cars. He sprinted over and plopped his butt right into one. He got stuck. The little chubby kid wiggled and squirmed for a solid minute, but his hips were firmly wedged in the plastic seat. Looking up at me with a baby face, he whined, "Uncle, this car is too small. I can't fit. Can you make a bigger one?" I crouched down and ruffled the cowlick sticking up on his head. "Sure thing, buddy. Next time, Uncle will make a big one just for you." As soon as I got back to the factory, I marched straight into the workshop. We're going to start making oversized inflatable toy cars. The workshop fell dead silent. Old Zhang was the first to speak. "Young boss, if we make children's toys that big, who's going to buy them?" My assistant, little Zhao, shook his head vigorously. "Boss, you're flying blind here. We only have 30,000 yuan left. We can't afford to mess around." I threw my hands up. Nobody is buying our current stock anyway, so we might as well try. Adapt or die, right? If a customer has a demand, we meet that demand. No one argued after that. I sat down and redrew the blueprints myself. 3 days later, our first oversized inflatable tank rolled off the line. It was a full 2 sizes larger than the original, with a widened seat and a heightened backrest. I hopped on my trike and headed straight for old Lee's store. The chubby kid was squatting by the door playing with mud. When he saw me walking up carrying a massive inflatable tank on my shoulder, his eyes went wide as saucers. He dropped the mud instantly. "Uncle, is that for me?" "Yep, all yours. Specially upsized. Give it a try." He cheered, threw himself at the inflatable tank, and sank perfectly into the oversized seat. He bounced up and down in pure joy. "Whoa, this is so cool. Thanks, Uncle. I can finally drive a tank." His eyes crinkled into happy little slits as he spun the inflatable tank around in the dirt clearing, making pew-pew-pew machine gun noises with his mouth. Old Lee stroked his chin. "You know, Lin, this thing is actually kind of interesting." A guy in his early 20s wearing work coveralls was standing nearby, watching the kid with blatant envy. He walked over to me. "Hey, boss, do you have any, bigger ones?" I looked at him. "How big?" He scratched his head. "Like, big enough for a grown man to sit in. Watching that kid play makes me want to try it." Adults. Inflatable toys. Oversized? A light bulb went off in my head. I instantly thought of stress relief gadgets, giant novelty snack bags, human-sized plushies. The adult market. It's quirky, it's a novelty, and it's perfect for viral short-form videos. My factory might actually be saved. "Yes, we do," I told him. Come back here in exactly 1 week to buy it. When I pitched the idea of making inflatable toys for adults back at the factory, the workshop absolutely erupted. Old Zhang literally jumped. Young boss, have you lost your mind? We can't even sell the small toys, and you want to make giant ones for adults? Who is going to buy that? Little Zhao chimed in. Boss, the kids' toys are gathering dust in the warehouse. If you make adult versions, aren't we just going to lose more money? Old Wang, the accountant, simply pushed his glasses up his nose. He didn't say a word, but his expression clearly said, it's over. This factory is completely doomed. I pulled out my phone, opened a video, and shoved the screen in their faces. The video was taken yesterday in front of Old Lee's store. It showed the chubby kid driving his oversized tank, completely surrounded by 7 or 8 grown men who were all talking over each other. Where'd you buy this thing? It looks fun as hell. Boss, do you have an adult version? I want one. Put me down for a pre-order. Old Zhang opened his mouth, then slowly closed it. I put my phone back in my pocket. Any more questions? Silence. Look, we're on our last legs anyway. It's time for a Hail Mary. Like I said, as long as the customer has a demand, we meet that demand. I personally drafted the designs and worked with our 2 senior craftsmen to create the molds. When the prototype finally came out, it was magnificent. It was 3 meters, about 10 feet, long and 1.5 meters, 5 feet, high. Army green. The tread patterns were so crisp, they looked real. The turret could rotate a full 360 degrees, and it featured a built-in water bead blaster with a 50-foot range. The seat was thickened and widened to support over 200 pounds, making you feel like you were sitting in a genuine armored vehicle. Old Zhang walked around the tank 3 times before finally muttering, Young boss, this thing is actually kind of badass. For our first batch, Old Lee's store took 5 units. He originally just wanted to put them out front as a novelty display to attract foot traffic. They sold out in 3 days. One of the buyers, a burly local guy, filmed a video of himself riding it and posted it online with the caption, Men's happiness is just this simple. The comment section was flooded with people begging to know where to buy one. Other buyers started posting their own goofy, comedic videos, and suddenly, we were a local viral sensation. Old Lee called me in a panic. Boss, send me 30 more. People are asking about them every single day. That afternoon, I had little Zhao hold my phone to record. I climbed into the inflatable tank, aimed the turret at the camera, and pulled the trigger. Pop! A water bead shot out and nailed a cardboard box 30 feet away, knocking it flat. Little Zhao was laughing so hard the camera was shaking. I posted the video that evening. It went viral instantly. Comments. Holy shit, I need this. Drop the link right now. Can you guys make a big airplane? I want to fly a fighter jet. Bro, where's your factory? I'm driving there right now to buy one. Order placed. Don't let me down, boss. My DMs maxed out at 99 plus, entirely filled with people asking how to buy. Uncle Wang, the accountant, burst into my office. Young boss, in one night, we've gotten over 300 new orders. He swallowed hard, his voice trembling. I think we're going to be rich. I stood up and waved my hand dramatically. With this many orders, called back all the veteran workers who quit. On the 3rd day of our explosive sales streak, I was squatting by the workshop door eating a boxed lunch when my phone buzzed. It was a text message, entirely in English. My English proficiency was strictly limited to hello and thank you. So I took a screenshot and sent it to my assistant for translation. 3 minutes later, little Zhao texted back, Boss, it looks like a trading company from Country X. They say they are highly interested in our products and want to discuss a partnership. Probably a scam, I muttered, shoving my phone in my pocket and going back to my noodles. The next day, a foreign phone number called me. A barrage of rapid-fire English came through the speaker. I braced myself. Hello? Yes. Okay. Good. I only understood 3 words of the entire conversation. Tank, plane, and order. When I hung up, little Zhao leaned in. Boss, what did they say? I think they want to come to the factory to negotiate a partnership. Foreigners coming here to buy toys. Looks like it. I didn't really understand them. I didn't think much of it. Since going viral, I'd received tons of scam calls offering agency operations, brand licensing, and equity investments. 9 out of 10 were grifters. A week later, A fleet of black SUVs pulled up to the factory gates. The doors opened, and a group of foreigners stepped out, dressed in sharp suits and polished leather shoes. The man leading them was middle-aged, with a meticulously groomed beard and eyes as sharp as an eagle's. Beside him stood a Chinese man in his early 30s wearing wire-rimmed glasses. He reached out to shake my hand. "Hello, Boss Lin. My last name is Liu. I'm the translator. This is my boss. He flew in from country X." I shook his hand, thinking, holy crap, they were serious? Our boss saw your videos and is extremely interested in your products. "Which products?" I asked. "The inflatable tanks and inflatable airplanes." I led them into the workshop. The moment the foreigners stepped inside, their eyes lit up. They ran their hands over the tread patterns of the inflatable tanks, tested the rotation angle of the turrets, and examined the curvature of the simulated armor plating. The middle-aged boss inspected everything for a long time, then stood up and spoke rapidly to the translator. Translator Liu turned to me. "Boss Lin, we would like to place a custom order, manufactured according to our own blueprints." "How many?" 10,000 units. I heard my employees collectively gasp behind me. Uncle Wang nearly dropped his calculator on the concrete floor. 10,000 units. If we priced them at 2,800 yuan each, that was 28 million yuan, roughly $4 million US. Our factory was about to be reborn. Translator Liu pulled a thick stack of blueprints from his briefcase and spread them out on a workbench. I looked down and froze. Those were blueprints for real military tanks. The dimensions were meticulously labeled: length, width, height, gun barrel caliber, track width. All precise, exact data. Translator Liu looked at me dead seriously. "We require a 1:1 scale replica." I looked up. "Why do you need so many inflatable toys like this?" The middle-aged man smiled faintly and spoke to the translator. Liu relayed the message. "The children in our country absolutely love these kinds of toys. We'll take the job." The deposit was wired into my account on the spot. When I saw the notification on my phone, my jaw nearly hit the floor. After that, the entire factory went into overdrive. I led a team to study the blueprints and even hired back our retired master mold maker. The old man had 40 years of experience. He took one look at the schematics and said 2 words: "Can do." Turret angles, tread patterns, hatch positions, armor curvature. Every single detail was replicated at a 1:1 scale. 15 days later, the first batch of samples rolled off the line. The foreign clients returned for the inspection. The middle-aged man walked up to the finished product, scrutinizing every inch. When he finished, he turned to me and gave a vigorous thumbs up. Translator Liu beamed. "The boss says your craftsmanship has vastly exceeded his expectations. They are extremely satisfied." Then, Liu pulled another stack of blueprints from his briefcase. "They've decided to add to the order. This time, there's a new requirement. All inflatable toys must be equipped with internal infrared heat sources." "Boss Lin, is this possible?" "If the customer has a demand, we meet it." "Yes, we can do it." A month later, the international clients returned. Translator Liu pulled a fresh set of blueprints from his briefcase and unrolled them on the table. I looked down, and my pupils dilated. This time, the blueprints were for mobile missile launchers with elevating launch racks, strategic bombers with a 52-meter/170-foot wingspan. They also required that all inflatable toys be equipped with infrared heat sources, be mobile, and have their surfaces coated in metallic, radar-reflective paint. Uncle Wang peeked over my shoulder at the blueprints, and all the blood drained from his face. He tugged frantically at my sleeve, his voice trembling. "Young boss, what kind of kids play with stuff like this?" Translator Liu smiled politely. "Boss Lin, can all of this be done?" I stared at the blueprints and took a deep breath. "We can do it." "Excellent. For this batch, we are placing an additional order for 30,000 units. 30,000. The cash register in my brain was ringing uncontrollably. Assuming an average price of 3,000 yuan, 30,000 units meant 90 million yuan. Add that to the first 10,000 units, and the total order value was over 100 million. Uncle Wang looked like he was going to pass out. After the clients left, Uncle Wang lowered his voice to a frantic whisper. "Young boss, something's not right here." "What's not right?" "Look at what they're ordering. Full-scale tanks, radar vehicles, missile launchers, strategic bombers. Are these still toys?" The client said they're for kids to play with. What country has kids playing with full-size inflatable tanks? And look at their blueprints. They are precise down to the tread patterns, the gun elevation angles, and the dimensions of the radar antennas. Are those toy blueprints? I was silent for 3 seconds. Uncle Wong, we are just toy makers. But what the client does with them is none of our business. I patted him firmly on the shoulder. We sell inflatable toys. Whatever they use them for, that's their prerogative. Uncle Wong opened his mouth, but ultimately couldn't find the words to argue. The factory shifted into maximum gear. We installed remote-controlled chassis at the base of the inflatable models, complete with electric motors and tread-style rollers for remote operation. The inflatable tanks could now move forward, backward, and turn in place. The turrets could rotate 360 degrees. Internally, we installed heating wires. When plugged in, they generated heat, displaying a massive thermal signature when scanned by an infrared camera. We coated the surface of the inflatable material with a metallic powder paint. When radar waves hit it, they bounced right back, creating a blip on a radar screen that was indistinguishable from the real hardware. 15 days later, the international clients arrived for the final acceptance test. Holding a remote control, I drove an inflatable tank out of the workshop. The turret rotated, the infrared heat source was blazing, and the metallic paint gleamed under the sun. The middle-aged boss walked around the tank 3 times, clapping loudly. He gave a massive thumbs up and rattled off a string of excited speech. Translator Lou beamed. The boss says you are an absolute genius. All of their future orders are going exclusively to you. I pulled out my phone and clicked on a new video. Tell the boss to take a look at this. It's a new product we've been developing. In the video, a massive inflatable military command center slowly unfolded. The interior was fully partitioned, complete with command consoles, communication equipment, and tactical map tables. Next to it stood a row of inflatable soldiers, life-size, wearing camo uniforms and helmets, gripping inflatable rifles. With the press of a button on the remote, the inflatable soldiers marched forward in perfect unison. The middle-aged man's eyes bulged. His entourage let out a collective whoa. Even translator Lou was stuttering. B-Boss Lin, this is inflatable command center, complete with inflatable soldiers. They are mobile, can march in formation, and have full infrared thermal coverage. Is the boss interested? The middle-aged man grabbed my hand, shaking it vigorously while shouting in his native language. Translator Lou translated. The boss says add it to the cart. Buy them all. Orders were exploding. I stood on the second-floor gantry of the workshop, looking down at rows upon rows of inflatable tanks, planes, and missile trucks rolling off the assembly line, being boxed up and shipped out. To be honest, it felt a bit surreal. This factory didn't look like a toy manufacturer anymore. It looked more like a defense contractor. 6 months ago, I was stressing over 30,000 yuan. Now, I had tens of millions sitting in the company account. Assistant Little Zhao came sprinting up the stairs, shoving his phone in my face. Boss, look at this. Playing on the screen was combat footage from a war zone. A fighter jet dove from the sky, firing a multi-million-dollar guided missile that scored a direct hit on a ground target. A massive explosion rocked the screen. As the smoke and dust cleared, the target was perfectly intact, just wobbling softly like a deflated balloon. The camera zoomed in. The tread patterns, the curve of the gun barrel, the paint job. Why did it look so familiar? The news anchor narrated. According to frontline reports, one military faction has successfully utilized inflatable decoy targets to deceive enemy missiles worth millions of dollars. The opposing force believed they had obliterated an entire armored division, when in reality, they were bombing a pile of inflatable balloons. Boss, that looks exactly like our inflatable tank. Little Zhao swallowed hard. Boss, I heard a story about a guy in Shandong who sold propane tanks, and they ended up being used in war zones, and now he's basically an arms dealer. Are we accidentally crossing over into a new industry? I handed the phone back to Little Zhao. We only manufacture civilian toys. What the client does with them after they buy them is none of our business. Do you understand me? Understood, boss. That very afternoon, I retained a top-tier legal team. I had them insert a specific clause into every single order contract. This product is an inflatable toy intended strictly for civilian entertainment purposes. The lawyer asked me, Boss Lin, do you want to add any more liability waivers? Add them. Add every single disclaimer legally possible. I stood by the workshop door, watching another shipment of inflatable tanks being loaded onto a truck. Whether the client took them back for kids to play with, or for enemy militaries to play with, was entirely their problem. Half a year later, the factory had completely turned its fate around. We expanded from 2 production lines to 8. Our workforce grew from 20-something guys to over 200 employees, and the machines ran 24/7. Salaries tripled, we paid full benefits and insurance, and we even handed out profit-sharing bonuses. Every single worker who had previously resigned came back. The workers stood at the workshop entrance, their eyes red with emotion. Young boss, we had no choice but to quit back then. Not only did you not hold a grudge, but you gave us a massive raise. I waved my hand expansively. The past is the past. From now on, we work together to keep growing this factory. The workers were fired up. Thank you, young boss. The production lines were red hot. Rows of inflatable tanks rolled off the line. Inflatable fighter jets took shape one after another. Inflatable missile trucks were boxed and packed. Forklifts darted back and forth while semi-trucks lined up outside, waiting to be loaded. Uncle Wong looked at the financial reports, his face wrinkled with a massive smile. Young boss, our net profit this month just broke the factory record again. I picked up a set of blueprints from my desk and pointed at them. Look at this, Uncle Wong. We've developed new models. Remote-controlled helicopters. Life-size inflatable human targets that automatically fall over when hit. 6-wheel drive inflatable armored personnel carriers. Uncle Wong beamed. Young boss, you are the king of ideas. A month later, the international clients came knocking again. The middle-aged boss walked around our new remote-controlled helicopter prototype 3 times, picked up the controller, and took it for a spin. Translator Lou smiled. Boss Lin, the boss says the quality of your products has vastly exceeded his expectations. He's increasing the budget for this order, and all future contracts will remain with you. I signed the contract. A pleasure doing business. A pleasure. Lou pushed up his glasses and lowered his voice. By the way, the boss also wanted to ask, can you guys make inflatable rocket launcher vehicles? Yes. As long as the customer has a need, we can build it. Lou gave me a massive thumbs up. That afternoon, an official government enforcement vehicle parked outside the factory gates. 3 men in uniform walked in, their expressions stern. The leader was a man in his 40s with a sharp, square jaw and piercing eyes. He flashed his badge the second he walked through the door. Are you the owner? We are federal inspectors from the Market Regulation Bureau. We received a tip that your factory is suspected of manufacturing military equipment. Please cooperate with our investigation. Right this way, please. I led them directly into the workshop. On the assembly line, a batch of inflatable helicopters was being produced. These are all inflatable toys, I said, pointing at the choppers. They are made of PVC plastic. Once inflated, children and adults can climb inside and play with them. They meticulously inspected the materials and the manufacturing process, splitting up to check the warehouses and assembly lines. The square-jawed inspector stood up, dusting off his hands. Why do they have infrared heat sources? Ordinary toys don't need those, do they? I didn't bat an eye. Outdoor exploration purposes. For example, our inflatable tents. Adding infrared heating wires keeps campers warm in cold regions. Behind me, old Zhang was so tense he wasn't even breathing. After a thorough inspection, the lead inspector closed his notebook. All right, we found no evidence of illegal manufacturing. He put his pen away and looked at me. However, Mr. Lin, your products are highly unique. I highly suggest you explicitly state their civilian purposes in all your marketing and contracts to avoid misunderstandings. We already do. Every single one of our order contracts clearly states, inflatable toy for civilian entertainment purposes. The clients sign and stamp it, and our legal team reviews it. The inspector flipped through our contracts and nodded. All right then, sorry to bother you. Once the officials left, old Jean collapsed onto an inflatable tank. Mother of God, that scared me to death. Looking at this workshop full of tanks and planes, we really do look like arms dealers. Uncle Wong wiped the sweat from his forehead. Young boss, when you said the infrared heat was for outdoor camping warmth, I almost lost my mind. But it's true. I said, my face completely deadpan. Inflatable tents with heating wires keep you warm when winter camping. Are there any problems with that? Uncle Wong stared at me for a second, then gave me a thumbs up. No problems at all. I clapped my hands. All right, back to work. This batch ships next week. The machines roared back to life. As our factory's reputation skyrocketed, clients began pouring in from multiple countries. Uncle Wong pushed my office door open, holding a massive stack of folders. Young boss, we got more foreign clients today. Our monthly revenue right now eclipses the last 10 years combined. You young people and your wild ideas have completely blown us old folks away. We never even dreamed of making money like this. I smiled. This is just the beginning. We're going to develop even more new products in the future. Uncle Wong nodded happily. Spread across my desk were the blueprints for our latest project, a full-scale inflatable aircraft carrier. Deck length, 330 meters, 1,080 feet. Island height, 40 meters. The deck had to be able to park inflatable fighter jets. The hangar needed to hold inflatable helicopters, and the aircraft elevators had to be fully remote controlled. Young boss, this thing, isn't the scale a bit too massive? That's exactly why we're expanding the factory. A 330-meter inflatable carrier. How much air volume is that going to take? How do we guarantee structural integrity? How do we calculate deck load-bearing capacity? With an island that tall, won't the wind blow it over? We solve the problems one by one. If we don't have enough air pressure, we use industrial-grade, high-power pumps. If it lacks structural integrity, we build an internal skeleton support system. If the deck can't bear the load, we thicken the base PVC layers. To make the island wind-resistant, we install anchoring systems and weighted ballasts. I led the workers, continuously refining our engineering techniques. On the day of completion, we stood outside the factory doors. The 330-meter inflatable aircraft carrier lay sprawled across the massive empty lot, its island towering into the sky. The deck was incredibly wide, lined with neatly arranged inflatable fighter jets. The entire factory staff of 200 people stood behind me in total silence. After a full minute of awe, old Zhang started clapping. Thunderous applause erupted across the lot. Uncle Wong stood beside me, his eyes red. Young boss, in my entire life, I have never seen an inflatable toy this big. Well, now you have. On the day of the international client's inspection, an entire motorcade arrived. The middle-aged boss stood in front of the inflatable carrier, staring up at it for a long time, his jaw literally dropping in shock. Translator Lu turned to me. Boss Lin, the boss says this is the largest inflatable model he has ever seen in his life. They placed the order on the spot. A year later, my parents returned from a long vacation, and I drove to the airport to pick them up. On the ride back, my mom chirped endlessly about the scenery, while my dad worried incessantly about me failing to save his bankrupt factory. When my car turned onto the road leading to the industrial zone, my dad froze. We went the wrong way, right? Nope, that's not right. Is this our factory? He looked around in utter confusion. The old, tiny workshop was completely gone. In its place was a sprawling, 50-acre modernized industrial park. Container trucks were lined up waiting to load cargo, and forklifts darted everywhere. Workers in crisp, uniform overalls were rushing around, busy off their feet. My dad stood at the factory gates, staring for a long time. This is our toy factory. Yep. His jaw dropped as he took in the sheer scale of the operation. I took them into Workshop 1, the inflatable tank assembly line. Rows of full-scale inflatable tanks were lined up perfectly, gun barrels pointing toward the sky, tread patterns incredibly sharp, and the metallic paint gleaming under the industrial lights. Workers were performing final quality checks. Someone was using a remote control to test the chassis movement. An inflatable tank rolled forward, its turret rotating a full 360 degrees. My dad's eyes were practically bulging out of his head. These tanks, they're huge. How did you make them look so real? I took him to Workshop 2, the inflatable aircraft assembly line. Fighter jets, bombers, early warning aircraft, all with wingspans measuring dozens of meters, with inflatable missiles hanging from their wings. A strategic bomber with a 52-meter wingspan was currently being inflated. Workers were operating on scissor lifts as the bomber grew larger and larger, nearly filling the entire cavernous workshop. My dad tilted his head back, staring up at the behemoth. Whoa, are airplanes really this big? It's what the client requested. What kind of client wants an inflatable airplane this massive? Do the kids in their country actually play with these? Foreign clients. Next, I showed him the production lines for the inflatable radar vehicles and missile launchers. The radar dishes could spin 360 degrees, and the missile racks could elevate. Then, the inflatable command center and humanoid soldier line. The command center could fit 20 people inside, fully equipped with tactical desks and comms arrays. The soldiers were life-size, decked in camo and helmets, holding inflatable rifles. They were mounted on remote-controlled chassis linked to a smartphone app, allowing them to march in formation, halt, and even go prone. My dad stood in front of a row of inflatable soldiers, watching them march forward in perfect unison. He gasped in amazement over and over. Finally, he turned to me. Son, tell me the absolute truth. What exactly are these things used for? The hum of industrial air pumps filled the silence in the workshop. I looked at my dad. My dad looked at me. Dad, we just make inflatable toys. They are for civilian entertainment purposes. He opened his mouth, struggling to find the words. You are way more badass than your old man. That afternoon, I was in my office reviewing new orders. Little Zhao burst into the room, shoving his phone in my face. Boss, look at the news. On the screen was an international news broadcast. Ceasefire signed in Middle East conflict. War of attrition via inflatable decoys cited as key factor. According to frontline reports, during a months-long standoff, both sides of the conflict deployed massive quantities of inflatable decoy targets, including full-scale inflatable tanks, fighter jets, and missile launchers. These inflatable models were equipped with infrared thermal signatures and anti-radar coatings, making them indistinguishable from actual military hardware on radar screens. Incomplete statistics indicate that both sides launched over 2,000 guided missiles at these inflatable decoys, draining billions of dollars in military budgets. A commander from one of the factions admitted in an interview, "We thought we had obliterated 3 of their armored divisions. It turns out we were bombing balloons." Due to the catastrophic financial drain, both factions were unable to sustain military operations and were forced to sign a ceasefire agreement. I scrolled down to the comment section. Holy shit, inflatable toys brought world peace. Wait, is this that viral inflatable toy factory from TikTok? It is. They posted a video saying, "You can't even imagine the joy of adults." El Mayo, I couldn't imagine the joy, but I definitely didn't imagine world peace. Nominate this factory for the Nobel Peace Prize immediately. Little Zhao stood next to me, his expression incredibly complicated. Boss, can we actually win the Peace Prize? I burst out laughing. I don't know about the Peace Prize, but I can definitely give you guys a bonus. Little Zhao cheered. You're the best, boss. My desk phone rang. I glanced down. It was an unknown number with an international country code. I picked it up and spoke flawlessly. Hello. This is China Inflatable Products Company. How can I help you? My English was smooth, bearing a perfect, professional business tone. It was a far cry from the days when I only knew hello and thank you. After all, our business had gone global. The person on the other end spoke rapidly in English. I nodded as I listened, pulling a fresh order form from my desk. Yes, we can do that. Full-size inflatable aircraft carrier? No problem. Please send us the drawings and specifications. We'll get back to you with a quote within 24 hours. I hung up the phone. Little Zhao looked at me in awe. Boss, another order? I filled out the information on the form. Yeah, they want a custom inflatable aircraft carrier. Are we taking it? Of course we're taking it. The customer is always right, and we meet their demands. Outside the window, another semi-truck fully loaded with inflatable tanks rolled out of the factory gates. Its headlights cut through the night, heading toward the shipping port. I put down my pen and looked at the mountain of orders piled on my desk. The phone rang again. Another foreign country code. I picked it up. Hello, this is China Inflatable Products Company. How can I help you? Outside, the factory was brilliantly lit, the roar of the machines echoing into the night. After surviving bankruptcy, my dad's little toy factory had opened a glorious, unimaginably badass new chapter.